late. Okay, I'm Uche Gabriel, and tonight we will be shedding more light. If you listened yesterday in the morning, we talked about mental health generally, but we'll be shedding more light on an issue that is as silent as it is serious. And we're talking about depression, and that is why people miss what it is. Not to talk of offering help to those who have that kind of situation. In a country like Nigeria, where resilience is often worn like a badge of honor, mental health conversations are still cloaked in stigma, silence, and misunderstanding. Depression, one of the is affecting millions right here at home, yet so many suffer in silence because they don't want to be stigmatized. Tonight we dig deeper and we ask questions like how prevalent is depression globally and also in Nigeria? What does it really look like? Who is most at risk? And why is it so easy to miss the signs, even when they appear in those closest to mental health expert who has worked extensively, uh, helping people with navigating depression and all the mental health challenges. Good to have you. Good evening once again.
Thank you. Good evening, Uche. Glad to be back.
Okay, let's start with understanding. Let's assume everybody doesn't know what it is. How prevalent is depression globally? Okay, I don't know. You've not lived here for quite some time, but then you can imagine how prevalent it is also in Nigeria.
So I don't have the exact statistics on me, but it's fairly common. One of the most common mental health disorders people have within your lifetime, right? Because it can come on for a little bit and it can self-resolve,
Okay.
remit by itself. There's always a risk that it can reoccur, come back. We know from the research that's been performed, it's more prevalent that in places like Nigeria and the US, the issue is I don't like to disclose it because the stigma is still very real.
Is it the same thing with, let's say, US?
US, it is similar. It is similar. I will say there has been a concerted effort in the US recently on bringing that focus in for mental health. So
Okay.
even though there's still less of a stigma, the stigma is still very real.
Why do people stigmatize someone who's already suffered?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when we don't understand something, I think the natural human behavior is to be wary of it or afraid.
Mm.
I think if you haven't gone through depression yourself, it's difficult to empathize or even understand what someone's going through when they have this. And unfortunately, the institution of psychiatry throughout history has also been riddled with different scenarios and examples of patients being mistreated and the patient population being characterized as dangerous or um, sexual trauma, physical trauma, even living in extreme poverty, that can affect people developmentally as they grow up. With mental health diseases or mental health conditions, we typically see it for depression, especially, and anxiety. A lot of times it occurs or happens during your teenage years adolescents. I've seen it in kids as young as 7, 8, 9 years old. Yeah. So it is very real. Something we have addressed though is something I did mention last time is centuries. We know what it is, and most importantly, we know how to treat this. We know what works and what doesn't work. And two things that do work we know of is medication. The medication we have right now to treat depression, it's been the same medication since at least the 90s, all right? And there's new medications coming up every year, and there's research going. And so we have a good grasp and a framework for that. There's also something called therapy, and we've been doing that since at least the 1900s.
Okay.
And that's something that, like I mentioned before, it takes three things. It takes a healer, someone who's suffering from a condition, and that therapeutic relationship, right? And that talking things out and conceptualizing and consolidating the problems, that does help people feel better. And we've seen through research it does.
Okay, now while we encourage people to be able to speak up about their condition, there's also the danger that people use the word depressed, casually. Okay, anybody who feels bad says I'm depressed. So, clinically speaking, how is depression defined, and how can one differentiate it from everyday sadness, or stress?
That's a really good question. Yes, I mean, people do say when they feel sad, hopeless, dejected, they feel depressed. I'd say that's correct. You can have the mood depressed. That is a mood you can feel. And like we mentioned yesterday, if you have the mood, right, you couple that with decrease in function, and you couple that with difficulty going about your life day to day, and as well as other symptoms, that then. So there's a few types of depressive disorders. One of the most common is major depressive disorder, right? And the way I look at that is when I talk to someone, I ask them, how have you been sleeping? Because your sleep is pretty much your framework or foundation for your health, right? And your mood. If any of us weren't sleeping for the last 3-4 days, we would feel horrible. We'd feel irritable, right?
Yeah.
We'd feel angry. We'd feel dejected, right? So how's your sleep? People with depression, you'd see they do two things. They either sleep too little, right? So they have difficulty falling or staying asleep, or they sleep too much. They're in bed all day. Anhedonia is what we call it's lack of joy. People with depression, the things they normally enjoy doing, going out with families, seeing their grandchildren, they don't do that anymore. Can you imagine living your life? Next is guilt. All people with depression also have this guilt where they feel like they've done something wrong, low self-esteem, they feel like they're worthless. That can be very intense and overwhelming. And then your energy levels. How have your energy levels been? Right? Typically we see they have low energy, right? Don't have enough energy to do their day-to-day tasks. Difficulty concentrating. They can't read a newspaper, the news, anything like that. The appetite, you're also not eating. And then I have to screen for this every single time. Are you having thoughts where you want to kill yourself, or you have thoughts where you're better off dead? Now, the difference between depression and normal sadness is your mood normally needs to be what we call reactive, right? So it means it needs to move. It's dynamic, right? You can be depressed in the afternoon, you feel better later in the day. That's not clinical depression, right?
Okay.
You were depressed then, right? But you don't have a mental health disorder, right? It needs to be right. So if something good happens, your mood lifts up. Something bad happens, it goes down. That's normal. That's what we all have. It's when it stays like that. That's where the problem is. Someone can offer you 100 million. And again, I want to stress that the feelings people have when they're depressed, it's immense suffering. It's very painful to live your day to day with those kinds of feelings. Personally, no, but I have been with multiple people. So many friends, patients. I do want to touch on something else that can cause the depression. Medications.
Mm.
I did
Can
take.
cause depression?
It can medication induced
Depression.
depression, and there's a medicine called it's a steroid medicine. So these medications are used if you have an infection, a lot of inflammation. It can be given to you. That can cause depression. I will say, I had a slight feeling. I think I took that medicine because I had an infection,
Mm.
and I remember feeling flat. Nothing made me happy. I had no goals, no aspirations. It's almost like I had a tunnel. I couldn't even conceptualize the future.
Mm.
And that feeling I had is in line with the feelings people describe to me,
Okay.
right? For what depression is. And it's bleak.
But it was for a moment, just a moment.
It was about 2 days.
Wow.
And those are tough 2 days.
Okay, now I'm really curious because when we talk about depression, it has a lot to do with what people go through, the trauma they go through, the socioeconomic pressures, and in Nigeria, it's like an everyday thing. And I'm wondering, how do I stay upbeat when everything around me is is depressing? Is it possible that one can not be depressed? I think here, if you're not depressed, then you are strange.
Yeah. If it is normal for your mood to go
Hmm.
down low, but I'd ask, what is your capacity for joy?
Okay.
Is there anything in your life right now that gives you that joy and enjoyment? I'd say do that. We know that if you don't want to take medications, what does work is exercise,
Exercise. Okay.
being around people you love and who love you, right? Having some structure in your life, right? Whether it's work, school, something that gets you up out of bed at a specific time. You do it to a specific time.
What is
come
it
back.
about physical?
Specifics. But if we look at the way our ancestors grew up and what's worked for us as a species,
Okay.
being together with other people, we're social creatures,
Mm.
that helps. Being able to move around, work, be part of a community, that helps. Exercise specifically, I do think it builds a kind of resilience.
Okay.
If you're running 1 mile, then you work your way up to 2 miles, 3 miles, or you're lifting heavy weights, you work up, you put defect or some fault structure literally change connections in the brain to help you feel better.
From the analysis you've given, that also means that loneliness could be a trigger.
Loneliness is a huge trigger, yes. And the interesting thing is which one came first, right?
Okay.
Right?
Whether it's the depression that brought the loneliness,
Yeah.
whether it's the loneliness that brought the depression.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which one? Because we know when people. Over the past year, I've been working with a few patients on a type of therapy we call interpersonal therapy.
Okay.
And the foundation for that therapy is that when you're depressed, guess what? You're going to feel more depressed.
Mm.
When those relationships improve, you start feeling better, your communication gets better, you begin to thrive more. So maybe in Nigeria, but in the States, when you're in nursing homes, your kids don't visit, they're by themselves, parts of your brain shrink.
Wow. See, it's key, like you've said.
It's huge.
So I should need help if I'm depressed, and I should be able to offer that help. Let's have a conversation around how I could know that maybe my husband, maybe my wife, or maybe my children are slipping into depression.
That's a good question. Because even if they don't say it, and people can be really good at hiding your depression. Because it's interesting, because depression, it affects everyone. You could be the poorest person on the planet, also have depression too. You have actors who have died from suicide from the behavior, right? Are they acting differently within the last 2 weeks? Consistently through 2 years, right? All right. Ultimately, they do get better by itself within a year, but it can be longer.
Okay.
Right? Has your behavior changed? Or are they still interacting with friends and family the same way? Or are they isolated? Are they by themselves more? How are they sleeping? Again, sleep is huge, because we see a lot with people with depression, they have what we call early morning awakenings, right? So, and that's the stress
It
hormone.
comes with insomnia.
It comes with insomnia, and that's the stress hormones in the body, because it's a stressful feeling being depressed. The stress hormones are waking people up. People sleeping till 11 a.m., 12 p.m., right? Do you still enjoy the things they used to enjoy, right? Have they been making statements that they feel guilty about something? Or you're like, why are you feeling guilty? This happened all these years ago.
I
Right?
think very expressive, yeah. People don't get to express such. After our conversation yesterday, a friend of mine who listened was like, oh, I've been having this, but I didn't even know. So what happens is that people are depressed and they don't even know on what it was. I just hear that, okay, people could get to a point where they become suicidal. They can begin to think about taking their own lives. Life could become so overwhelming that you don't think you can cope. And it happened to me. The Christmas of it was like a fleeting moment. To drink, but I was not in the moment. I mean, it was just like I was both a spectator and also the person I'm looking at. It's like I'm looking at myself. People are like, "This is not you." I couldn't flow. Okay, but then it was even worse. And I mean, from my explanation, couldn't even understand what I was going through. In fact, one particular person said I was forming depression. Okay. Pretending, feigning it. Yeah, that's what it means. Okay, so we, at least if you don't understand me, at least don't make my matter worse. And we live in a Nigeria where it's downplayed. I don't know about other countries, but in Nigeria, it means. Okay, so you're going through the turmoil all by yourself. Face, like you said, sometimes you resist people, knowing what to say, what not to say, how to handle them. You might want to help us with that.
It takes a lot. Helps the audience and me. You see a lot with a lot of science, and I'd be interested if it's similar in Nigeria. But back to your question, what can family members do? That's a really good question. Someone or shout at them enough. Okay, you can't say, what are you doing? Get on with your life. Look at what you're doing. You can't shame people out of depression. The same way you can't shame people out of drinking too much. It doesn't work, right? Especially with depression. What does help is that support. So if you can find someone, get some help, that's good. Even if it's going to church. If church is a place, or speaking to your pastor or the Reverend Father is a place where you feel you get some relief together. Okay, there's this event. Come with me. Let's go. Let's go to market. Things that bring you out from your current environment, so you're not home all day, and also things that help distract you from the way you're feeling. Right? It's not going to make it go away, but it's going to help relieve that pain.
Okay, we'll be opening up the talk lines any time soon because I really want people to get help. In case you have the courage, if you want to hide your name, you can use an alias. Nobody should know who you are, but the important thing is to be able to describe what you're going through. And I've seen what it does to even my relationships. Sometimes I don't want to talk to anybody. I could be very sociable, but sometimes I don't even having a call, taking a call, could be a problem sometimes. Okay, we'll get to the talk line 090977111009. Hello, what's the name?
My name is Super. I'm calling from Ababa.
All right, let's hear you. Go ahead.